What's up, guys? Welcome back to another edition of Goat Talk with Marcus, powered by Poddex, fueled by Goat Fuel. Once again, joining me as always, the habitual pain in my left, right, back, and front sides, Mr. Justin Marville, the hashtag thisJUSTin Sports Show. What's up, man? How you doing?
Feeling a lot better now because the Phoenix Suns are going on to second round. But unfortunately, if you think I'm the pain in your backside, well, yeah. But another episode.
Real quick, we don't have to get into it real quick. I will say this, right? After having a sleep, and we're recording this on Friday, by the way, as you guys are listening to this on Saturday, but watching on Saturday too. After getting a sleep, the Devontae Wyatt pick doesn't bother me as much as it did in the moment. It's the Quay Walker pick that's really grinding my gears because he wasn't the best inside linebacker on his team, and the best inside linebacker on his team in Nakobe Dean was still available. And if you look at it as far as reaches or steals, technically, Devontae Wyatt would be technically in the steal category because he was ranked 23rd in the draft and we got him at 28. Quay Walker, if I'm not mistaken, was ranked 53rd. And guess who has the 53rd pick in the draft this year? Well, that's the Green Bay Packers. So he probably still would have been there come pick 53. So that's what bothered me. Obviously, not drafting wide receiver is an issue as well. G.O.A.T said, well, top six guys aren't there. You go defense. Aaron Rodgers talked about it briefly on the Pat McAfee show. After getting a sleep, I'm okay.
I'll quickly run through this. I don't know if I'll ever get a chance to say this. My issue is not drafting a wide receiver at the bottom of the draft, right? I'm a believer in draft grades, and there were 6 receivers according to them, and I also agree that carried first round grades, and they were drafted before we got a chance. So I have no problem with us not reaching for a wide receiver. My issue is this: you had 2 first round picks, and you were not able to translate them into anything. And by anything, I mean you did not package them to trade for a Deebo Samuel or an A.J. Brown. Granted,
A.J. Brown went for a first and a third. Granted,
I will say that teams don't line up to trade with the Packers, but okay. You didn't trade these 2 first-round picks for a veteran receiver. You didn't package these first-round picks to move up to get one of these rookie receivers. And then on top of that, you are in your position and you did not use your picks. Again, I don't mind the players themselves. The players themselves are good.
The players are good.
The issue I had is that these picks needed to be added to a team that will put them over the top. This is a team with a Super Bowl or bust mentality. This isn't a young team building for the future. And that I see inside linebacker, defensive tackle are not positions that you are thinking are going to put you over the top, because those are positions primarily geared at stopping the run.
Yep.
Like, your goal has to be impact positions, and I figured you might look at it as you might look up for pass rusher if you didn't get a wide receiver at that position that you wanted.
Yeah.
Like, because you got to make up for the losses of Darius Smith. Like, I like the players, and I understand the thinking and not reaching for a wide receiver that you can get in the second round. I just felt with 2 first-round picks, you could have packaged them to move up in the draft or package them for a veteran wide receiver. That's just my thinking.
Last thing, too, I was also disappointed. As the draft was going on and as we were getting closer and closer to 13, because I thought that if Kyle Hamilton was still on the board at 13, that's 100% a guy I think we trade up for and go get, because the secondary, it's a nice secondary, but it could 100% be better. Like, Darnell Savage is a reliable player, but he hasn't necessarily taken the steps that we thought he would. Kyle Hamilton's a solid guy. There are a lot of opportunities. Like, obviously there were receivers and there were teams ahead of you that needed a receiver. You couldn't have thought that the Saints and maybe even the Patriots, although they took the craziest pick of the first round by far, or in teams like that wouldn't have tried to trade up to get one of these top 6 guys. Like, the same 6 guys that we thought were top 6 are the same 6 guys that everybody thought was top 6. There was going to become an aggressive standpoint. I feel like the lack of aggression, just to sit on your hands. And again, Quay Walker is a good player, and I'm not saying that Quay Walker's trash, and Devontae Wyatt, again, he's a solid player. It's just draft grades mean a lot. And the draft grade for Quay Walker at that point wasn't a good one. The draft grade for Devontae Wyatt is a good one because of where he was ranked and where we got him. But like you said, that's not going to change anything in the long term as far as us winning a Super Bowl.
I know we want to get to basketball, but let me quickly add, here is what I will say. The philosophy of the Green Bay Packers is going to change drastically next season. So what used to be a prolific offense, I think what you're going to see, and I think that is what Brian Gutekunst has been trying to do since he's become general manager. You are going to see a very, very stout defense that wins on, like, it's going to be a primarily run, like they're going to run heavy and stop you on the other side of football. I think that we're not going to turn over the football. It's going to be a run heavy offense, and we're going to play defense. I think that is what we are going to see going forward with the Green Bay Packers.
And that's a solid thing to hang your hat on. You guys didn't come here to listen to us kind of complain or whatever, so it's fine. Let's talk about why we are here, which is to listen to Justin Marville verbally jerk off the Phoenix Suns in their 6-game series victory over the New Orleans Suns, 4-2. We're going to talk about it later in the show. In fact, it's towards the end, but real quick. Chris Paul, perfect basketball on the closeout, 33 points, 8 assists, 14 for 14, the new postseason record for most shots attempted without a miss in NBA history, 14 for 14. Fantastic basketball from Chris Paul. But we also got some really solid basketball from one Brandon Ingram. This is his first playoff series ever. We kind of forgot about that. Obviously, we talk about the big names like your Anthony Edwards, and your John Morant, obviously Luka Doncic winning his first playoff series. That was major, but we kind of forgot that this is the first time that Brandon Ingram's been in the playoffs, and he played fairly well. I would say in his first series, averaged about 40 minutes a game, averaged 27, 6 and 6 on 47% shooting, 41% from three, 83% from the line. Obviously was a big reason why they were able to get those 2 wins in this series and keep some of these other games close. Let's go grade school here. How would you grade Brandon Ingram's performance in this series from start to finish?
A. It's an A. And first you touched on the numbers, like 27, 6 and 6, leaning towards 48 from the field, 41 from deep. This is his debut playoff series against the best team in the league in terms of record, and he was being defended by the most part by a defensive player of the year candidate in Mikal Bridges, and you still put up those numbers on extremely efficient shooting. Yes, an A. And the only reason I don't give it something more like an A+, he did have that one bad game to start, but again, it's his first playoff game on the road in Phoenix. I think he shot 6 of 17 in game 1. Yeah. And after that, like, there's nothing else to complain for. Like, you're playing on the road in Phoenix in game 1. I would not expect you to have a great, performance, but it's an A. Like, you're scoring at efficient levels. You were the team's primary facilitator. You rebounded the basketball, playing against the league's best team. The only thing that you fell short on is actually winning the series, and no one had you to win the series. Most people didn't even have you to get into the playoffs to begin with. And it doesn't just stop there, sorry. That's why I have it as an A, because it also included those 2 playing games where he also was good as well. Yeah. I don't know what more I can say about Brandon Ingram, and it is part of the reason why I know the Lakers would have preferred to hold on to him instead of Kyle Kuzma. A lot of people were high on Kyle Kuzma because he averaged more points than Brandon Ingram during their time together in Los Angeles. But it kept telling people, don't just look at the scoring. Look at the skill sets. And Brandon Ingram is a guy who scores at all 3 levels. Like, he can score from beyond the arc. He scores mid-range. He scores at the rim. He is a facilitator. He can play make. We saw that during the entire series. He rebounds the basketball. He's long enough to defend. This is a guy the Lakers probably would have preferred to have over Kyle Kuzma, but obviously if you're trading for Anthony Davis, you had to give up something. So, not to hammer home the point or belabor the point, but I give him an A.
I love Brandon Ingram. I'm going to give him an A+, just because I love him. I mean, when you look at the task, right? I think we kind of forget that Mikal Bridges was a finalist for Defensive Player of the Year, and that means a lot. You're 27-6-6 on a Defensive Player of the Year candidate in 40 minutes as the primary scorer for a team that shouldn't have even made the playoffs. Now you're here. No one really pegged this team to, I would say, even win a game in this series. Like, and I'm one of those people. I thought there's going to be a clean sweep for the Suns, not because Brandon Ingram and the Pelicans aren't good, but because the Suns are so much more better. They're better well coached. They have three of the best players in the series. You could make an argument for if you wanted to throw in a guy like a DeAndre Ayton, but I absolutely had the three best players on the floor at any given moment in this series. Brandon Ingram played phenomenally. Brandon Ingram, I think, proved in this series what I have always thought, which is that he's the best player on the Pelicans. Like Zion's the box office attraction, but not only have we not seen Zion play, but Zion can't hold a candle to what Brandon Ingram can do for you offensively. And Brandon Ingram is a pretty good defender as well. He's got the length. He has the lengthy wingspan. Like, he can do everything for you. Building around Brandon Ingram, I think, is what's best for the future of the New Orleans Pelicans, which brings me to the next point to discuss, because it's come out now that Zion Williamson says he's 100% ready, healthy and ready to come back to the New Orleans Pelicans. Based on what we've seen New Orleans do this season without him, do the Pelicans need Zion Williamson moving forward to continue to kind of hover in this play-in spot and then potentially maybe continue to progress and become a perennial playoff team? Like, do they need Zion Williamson? Are they better without Zion? Should they just move on from him?
I see where you're leaning me towards. So let me start a bit with a caveat, as I usually do. Like, in a perfect world, yes, the New Orleans Pelicans do need someone like Zion Williamson, because they're not going to get the free agents that typically a big name franchise or a free agent destination like Los Angeles Lakers, Dallas Mavericks, Boston Celtics, they're not going to get those sort of free agents. So when you draft a franchise changing talent like Zion Williamson, the goal is ready to keep him. That being said, though, they are better off trading him. Not better off without him, but they're better off trading him. And for two reasons. One, I've learned something, and you'll be surprised when I say this name, but from our good friend Guru, and he's kind of really changed my perception about things. He has a saying, injured amateurs typically make injured professionals. And Zion Williamson is a guy who has been injured in high school. He's been injured in college, and to no one's surprise, or should not be to anyone's surprise, now again he's injured in the pros. He has been in the league 3 seasons, and for a total of 3 seasons, I think he's played or appeared in 84 games. That's just a season's worth of games, plus 2.
Yep.
Now, to be fair to him, you can look in Philly and say, well, Joel Embiid in his first 3 seasons only appeared in 31 games. And now look, by Philly, showing faith in Joel Embiid, look and see where they are now as title contenders.
Yep.
And Joel Embiid does have a history of injury from back to knee to torn meniscus. We can go on and on. Here is the big difference between the two for my second point. Joel Embiid was always committed to making Philadelphia better.
Yeah.
I don't know I can say the same for Zion Williamson. Initially, you've heard the reports or the rumors that he would like to play in a bigger market, New York, etc., especially when, New Orleans won the lottery and got the rights to the number 1 overall pick. You heard about rumors about his displeasure about that. Then, you've heard rumors that he does not ingratiate himself with his teammates. He's a bit aloof, and during the time that he has been rehabbing, he's been away from his teammates. And none other than his own former teammate, J.J. Redick, then called him out when it was found out he didn't even welcome, and I mean by him, Zion didn't even welcome C.J. McCollum to the team via text, nothing like that. The reports are this guy is a bit, I don't want to say aloof, but apart from his teammates, where there's smoke, there's fire, and too much is telling me he does not want to be in New Orleans. So why would you commit to someone who doesn't want to be there and hardly takes the floor And then when you see his commitment, sure, players don't always have control over their health, over their injury situation, but you have control over your weight. And I don't know that Zion Williamson is committed to staying healthy, to staying in shape. Like, recent history tells me otherwise. And me personally, and I'm not saying this is what the Pelicans should do, but if it were me, I would cut my losses now, see what I can recoup in terms of training Zion Williamson right now, or I may play him half a season next year, get him back to his utmost best, and then pull the trigger at the trade deadline. I just don't know that Zion Williamson's attitude towards the team and towards his own personal fitness and shape is what's best for New Orleans going forward.
So it's funny. It's like as soon as we talk about this, the report from Bleacher Report says that apparently at some point Zion was speaking with reporters and asked about whether or not he would sign a contract extension if offered, and he said, "Of course, I couldn't sign it fast enough." You're saying that now, but the reports at the beginning of the season don't really match that narrative. I think the New Orleans Pelicans would be wrong to give Zion an extension because we haven't seen him play basketball. He's been in the league for 3 seasons. 3 seasons worth of basketball puts you at about 240 some odd games. If you just do that math real quick, I believe that tops out at 246 games. Not to mention, say you make the playoffs, how many more games that adds on. So you're talking of 246 games potentially, if that math correct. He only played 84. That's not extension worthy. Granted, like you said, you can't control your health, but a lot of Zion's health issues have been lower body extremities because of how explosive of a player he is. He gets hurt in his legs because of his weight, which is something that has always been a red flag to me about Zion Williamson. And when he came in, like he is a phenomenal talent and he is extremely box office. But if he can't get that weight down, this is what we're going to see. So I don't know if the New Orleans Pelicans should be tendering an extension for Zion Williamson whenever that is due. There are a lot of different places that he can go. You can send him to New York, which is where it feels like he wanted to go from the beginning, and you can get pieces back from that. You can send him to some other team that's kind of in the lowly areas. Maybe the Kings will listen to an offer for Zion. Maybe the Pistons will listen to an offer for Zion. Like there are places that if you're the Pelicans that you get. I think they should cut their losses, and I don't know if Zion Williamson on this roster is going to improve it as far as being like back in the playoffs next season, because I feel like Zion would take away from what Brandon Ingram does. I feel like he'd take away from what CJ McCollum does with the ball. Like it'd take away from what a lot of these guys on this roster are doing, and I don't think that's a recipe for success for the Pelicans. Like I said, Brandon Ingram, bar none, has been the best player on this team, in my opinion, already. And if you didn't already think that, I feel like this series shows you that 100%. He's proven that he can be the number one guy on this team. Zion Williamson hasn't. And if what JJ Redick saying is true about him being distant from his teammates, like that's not good for morale anyway, let alone the lack of production. So cut your losses while you can. Send them to New York for some picks and some of those bench players out there. He wants to play with this guy RJ Barrett. There's nothing wrong with that. Let him do that. Send him to maybe the Kings. Send him to OKC. Like there's places that you could potentially try to shop around Zion if he says he's 100% healthy. Let him play that first half of the season until the trade deadline and send him on his way. I don't know. I don't see the appeal in keeping Zion Williamson at this point, because we haven't seen enough from him for me to look at it and think that there is an appeal to keep Zion Williamson. Now, this wasn't on the show flow, but I did want to talk about really quickly because it just popped into my mind. One of the unsung heroes of this entire run in the playoffs, from playing game to this series, was Jose Alvarado. The impact you think he has moving forward in New Orleans, given what we saw him do in this postseason series?
I like what he did. The energy he brings off the bench, playmaking, etc. I just think he made one error, which typically young players tend to make, and that was he ran his mouth a bit too much. And like running your mouth against certain players is not wise. We'll get into that, but you saw what happened game 4. CP3 was held to just 4 points, and the other rookie, Brandon Ingram, went mouthing off, and then you saw what happened in the rest of the series. That was the end of that. And I just put that on youthful exuberance. So I like him. I still think, and we'll also get into that later in the show, I still think they need to improve at that position, particularly that they need a playmaker. So you're not asking Brandon Ingram to do all of this heavy lifting because Brandon Ingram is scoring. He is their primary facilitator. That you're asking too much of such a young player. So I think they need to improve at that position and add another scorer. But I think we're going to get into that topic. I like him, but I like him as a reserve, bringing that energy, kind of like what Campaign does for us in Phoenix. I kind of like him doing the same in New Orleans.
So let's talk about your Phoenix Suns for a second, and I guess we can let the verbal drinking off begin. Devin Booker returned in Game 6, coming off a hamstring injury. Didn't look like Devin Booker in Game 6 to me, anyway. We know how hamstring injuries are. You feel like they're okay, but then one wrong step, wrong move on a blow by, and that injury is now nagging you again. Usually takes about 2 to 3 weeks to recover from, and all you can do is rest it. He came back in about a week, if I'm not mistaken. So they've moved on. They now are going to be matched up with the Dallas Mavericks. They are the superior team, obviously, defensively, offensively. They're better coached. Should the Suns, they're not going to hold them out of the series, obviously, and even if they want to, Devin Booker's not going to say yes to that. Should the Suns hold Devin Booker on a minutes restriction through at least the first 2 games of the second round until that hamstring is better than what it is? Because I don't think his hamstring is completely healthy at this point.
So it sounds weird. I'm a guy who typically favors resting players for hamstring because that's the only thing that helps hamstrings is rest. I wouldn't put him on too heavy of a minutes restriction because you also don't want to get too cold sitting on the bench and then have to warm up immediately for a hamstring. I was against initially bringing back Devin Booker for this series, quite frankly. But
yes,
I think I understand the reasoning behind it. The first thing is, if it went to Game 7, obviously they were going to bring Devin Booker back. And I don't think they wanted to bring him back on a do-or-die situation like a Game 7 like that. I think they wanted to ease his way back into the situation. So they played him in Game 6, and they wanted to close out. I don't think Phoenix wanted to play around with the team. Like, you have a close-out situation, let's close him out. So they played him, 31, 32 minutes in that game. He wasn't himself, but I didn't see him limping or lingering around with that hamstring. Devin Booker's a guy who has played with that injury before. A lot of people don't realize during the NBA Finals he was playing on an injured hamstring. I will say if you're going to play him. If you're minutes restriction, I'd say give him the same 30 plus that you did in Game 6. I wouldn't go like what the Warriors did with Steph Curry because the reality is it is either going to hurt him or he's just going to play. But it is not a situation where you are making the situation any worse or better by limiting his minutes. And I say this by saying hamstrings only get better with rest. You have to rest a hamstring. That's the only way they heal. Like, there's nothing you do otherwise than resting it. The mere fact you're going to play him makes no difference. So whether you're playing him 20 minutes or 40 minutes, it's not going to help. So you could as well, if he's out there playing, you could as well play him because keeping him on the bench for extended periods of time is probably going to hurt him more because then you get muscle get cold, then he goes on the court, and as you know with basketball, these are sharp, quick movements. So like, there's nothing worse than having cold muscles and then trying to explode on them. That's a recipe for injury. So that is the only reason I say it doesn't matter or it doesn't make any sense giving him a heavy minutes restriction. You're already playing him now, so to hell with it. And he's already known how to manage the injury, having done that in the NBA Finals.
Before, when I wrote the question, I was leaning on no for all the reasons you listed. I feel like the Suns have the experience, the roster construction, and the coaching where holding Devin Booker to 30 minutes a game in this series won't hurt them. I don't think it'll hurt him either, as long as you do it correctly. Like, as long as it is done in a way where he's not sitting for too long. We see sometimes, we don't see that much in basketball, but we see sometimes in football, like a guy will have a lower leg issue or something, and when he's not on the field, he's like on a bike or something. Obviously, you don't have bikes in the NBA just sitting courtside for guys to use, but figuring out a way to balance it, because if you're going to play him for 20, you might as well play him for 40. That's fair, and that's a logical point. But the Suns are clearly playing the long game here. Like, they're 100%. The goal of this season is to make it back to and then hopefully win the NBA Finals. And yes, while Devin Booker played on the NBA Finals last season, or played on this hamstring injury in the finals last season, so he does know how to manage it better. I don't know if that's a risk you want to take. I still feel like that's a little bit of a dangerous game, because even if he's not on that minutes restriction, or even if he is, that hamstring could still kind of do whatever it's going to do. I feel like if you have less minute, if you put less miles on the tire, so to speak, before you get there, I feel like that is better, because Chris Paul is playing elite basketball. Mikal Bridges was phenomenal in this series on both sides of the ball. You still have DeAndre Ayton, you still have your Cam Paynes and your Cam Johnsons, you still have you still got
Jay Crowder,
you still got Jerry. So you still have all this talent that, if Devin Booker's only available to you for, say, 30 minutes a game, and those other 18 minutes he's, not including halftime, and like he's working on that hamstring, whether it's doing dynamic stretches or whatever it is, you're not going, the production drop off as far as points I don't think is going to be that vast, because you still have a top 5 point guard of all time in Cam and Chris Paul, who's going to find whoever. And as we saw in this past game, in Game 6, he'll do what he's got to do himself. If it means he's got to do it himself, he can do that. So it really just, it's I feel like it's to each his own kind of thing. It really just depends on what the philosophy is. I know for sure that the decision is probably going to be primarily in Devin's hands, because I'm pretty sure it was Devin's decision to play in Game 6. I don't really think that was a not to say that he wasn't cleared, because I'm sure he was cleared for some physical activity, but I don't know this for sure. I'm just guessing. I don't know if Monty Williams was the one to decide that. I think that was a Devin Booker thing, like I can go, let me go type of thing. Not playing him in Game 6 wouldn't have hurt him. I don't think it would have hurt the Suns. They would have.
I'll say this:
given what happened last night, you can say they would have won that game last night with or without him, because he didn't. He wasn't really. So it really just all depends on what you do. Do you play the game with the let's just let him do it so that he doesn't get cold, or do you let him get rested up so that we're 100% sure that he's healthy and he's 100%? I feel like you should lean more to that side of let's make sure he's 100% healthy, as opposed to let's put him out there on the 75-80% that he is and just hope that it doesn't go crazy because he can manage it. That I feel like that's kind of where I'm at.
There are two factors I forgot to add. I think that is also swayed towards him playing. One, historically, and you may not know this, that Phoenix is known to have the best medical staff in the entire NBA. Like,
they are
always seen, especially older players, all the vets, go to Phoenix because for whatever reason, whatever they do, that medical staff has always found a way to keep players at their optimum health. It's no surprise that Chris Paul, for the major part of it, has avoided injury here in Phoenix. And, you've seen older players, Grant Hill, Vince Carter come through Phoenix, Shaq in his later days. Like, this medical staff historically is noted as one of the best. And I think the real reason behind playing Devin Booker, I think this team feels like it is win now or bust because of the contract situation with DeAndre Ayton. Like, it is known that he wanted a max contract. The organization didn't think he was deserving of what he was looking for. He will be some type of free agent going into the offseason. No one knows if he's going to be back. I think Phoenix is treating this like we win it all now because we don't know what our roster is gonna look like next season with or without Aiden. So I think that's how they're treating it, and they're saying like, you know what, look, not playing or playing Booker less minutes is not going to hurt him anymore because reality is it is all rest or play because you're not going to help your hamstring by playing limited minutes. Like, it's going to hurt regardless. So I think that's their thinking. Like, they're going all in. I agree with you. I would not have played Booker in Game 6. But again, Booker comes from that Mamba mentality mindset. He is a Kobe Bryant disciple, and we knew what Kobe Bryant stood for. He would have played through injuries. Booker is no different. He is, he looked at Kobe Bryant as a mentor. So it's no surprise to me that he came back early. I think the Suns are all in right now, and they're viewing it. We win a title this season or bust.
That's fair. You can't get mad at that. Again, you look at that game, and clearly they could have won that game without him because Chris Paul masterclass. 33 points, 8 assists, as I mentioned earlier, 100% from the field, 14 for 14, most shots made in a single postseason without a miss. Where does that game, and I know like 50 of your top 100 are Giannis performances somewhere, especially now that you're a resident of Wisconsin, but where does Chris Paul's Game 6 performance rank among some of the best playoff performances we've seen in recent memory? We'll say in the last 5-7 years.
Oh, well, if we're talking short term, that's like top 10 for sure. And the reason why it's so high for me then is because this is a close-up situation. I always look at how players perform in elimination games. That's why I give Doc Rivers a side eye, but that's another conversation for another day. But I always rank players' playoff performances in elimination games, whether you are doing it to eliminate the game or to eliminate the opponent or to survive elimination, and that's why it ranks so highly. To go 40-14 when Devin Booker was clearly not himself. And what is so impressive about the feat is that Chris Paul is a 6-foot guard who is not athletic, who does not play above the rim. I don't know another guard with the exception of older Allen Iverson and also, let's say, somebody like Isaiah Thomas, the older Isaiah Thomas that is. I don't know a guard at 6 feet or below that plays below the rim that can get to whatever spot they want to score like that. Like, I'm like, you are so small, and yet you have the ability to manipulate the defense to get to your spots to score. Even
Steph plays below the rim too.
Yeah, but he's 6'3". Then there's a
he is 6'3". Yes, you say 6 feet. Okay, I got you. Yeah.
He's 6'3". Like, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, Steph plays below the rim, but there's a huge difference there.
Yeah, those 3 inches do make a world of difference. You're right. Yeah,
they really do. Like, Chris Paul is 6 feet, and to manipulate people to get, and everyone knows where he wants to go. He wants to go to his right. He wants to get to that right elbow of the free throw line, and for whatever reason, people just can't stop it. And it is impressive, whether it be from 3, from those mid-range shots, those floaters. In the top 10, if you're talking about the last 5 years, 5 seasons, I'd rank in the top 10 playoff performance without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah, I put it right there. I mean, you look at some of the greater closeout games you've seen. I mean, Giannis obviously gave us 50 points in the closeout game in the finals last season. That's obviously up there. LeBron James' performance in the 2016 finals and that closeout game on top of the 2 games before that that they played to stave off elimination are definitely up there as well. Just perfection. Like, I was trying to figure out the title of the show, and I was like, "Oh yeah, point guard, God mode." Very simple, because that's what Chris Paul was. Chris Paul was in God mode last night. He's been in God mode all postseason. If I'm not mistaken, he has over 40 assists in this playoffs so far through the first round, and less than 10 turnovers. Like, this is efficient basketball at its best. And to do it when the guy, your homie, the 1B to your 1A or the 1A to your 1B, whatever, when he's not on and when you need it, and I believe that was a home game if I'm not mistaken. Like, that is,
no, he was on the road.
I was on the road, which makes it even better. Like that, so you put all that into account, and that was a phenomenal performance by Chris Paul. You couldn't have asked for anything better, but also like it's part of the course. Like we saw in Game 6 last season against the Lakers in round 1, he did the same thing. Gave us a great series, or gave us a great closeout game. Game 6 against the Nuggets last season in the Western Conference semis, I believe it was when they saw the Nuggets. He gave us a great closeout game, and even again the Western Conference Finals in that closeout game played really, really well. So what Chris Paul does, this is just yet another instance of a closeout game for Chris Paul. He's stepping up and he's doing what he has to do. We spoke about it briefly earlier, but I do want to kind of dive into it just a little bit more before we go. Pelicans obviously will be going home now. You've got Brandon Ingram. You have CJ McCollum, who says he wants to retire as a Pelican. You have your guys like your Herbert Jones and and guys like that. What do you think is at the top of the list for the Pelicans as far as making sure that they can not only improve and not only stay competitive and get better, but also potentially find themselves right back in the playoffs next season?
Well, you have to resign Jonas Valanciunas. I thought he was critical to what they did in the postseason. I'm not huge on bigs that don't really defend the perimeter and shoot a lot of threes, but he fit what they did this season under Willie Green. And I think Willie Green as a head coach was tremendous towards the end of the season, especially this playoff series. I told you they need to get better at the point guard position for sure. I also think in free agency, they have to go after somebody like Bradley Beal, a shot creator, a massive shot creator, and if they strike out on him, as much as people think Zach LaVine is the second rated or third, wherever you put Kyrie Irving on, if he returns to Brooklyn or not, free agent up there, I would rather go after somebody like Miles Bridges more so than Zach LaVine, because Miles Bridges plays at both ends of the floor. This is a guy who was extremely efficient. I think he shot 49% from the field, averaged 20 points, and he plays both offense, defense. He rebounds the ball. Mm-hmm. I would prefer him over Zach LaVine. Less injuries, younger. I like Miles Bridges. So, like, you have to go after another shot creator, whether it be Bradley Beal, whether it be Miles Bridges, maybe Zach LaVine if you strike out on both players. But somebody of that caliber to complement Brandon Ingram, to also complement a CJ McCollum. It also moves CJ McCollum off the ball because his natural spot is not really point guard.
100%. I think point guard's at the top of the list. I don't know what's going to happen with him, but I think Ricky Rubio is going to be attractive to some of these teams that are looking for a facilitator. I think Ricky Rubio should be at the top of the Pelicans list because they do need a natural facilitator. They do need a guy who can facilitate. CJ McCollum's natural position isn't the 1, it's the 2. And even if you do bring in another 2 like a Zach LaVine or a Brad Beal, because they're bigger than a CJ McCollum, you can easily stop them in at the 3 and move Brandon Ingram to the 4 because he also has the size and the length to do so. It allows you to have that versatility. This is a young team outside of CJ McCollum and Jonas Valanciunas. This is a very, very young team with a lot of room to grow. I think defense also has to be a priority as well, because they need it, but they also need some offensive help as well. So whatever moves they make, I feel like I don't think there's a wrong move really for the Pelicans. I would say the only move that would be head scratching to me personally is holding on to Zion Williamson because of the lack of production so far through 3 seasons. Again, 246 games available. You only play 84 of them. That to me is slightly alarming. So that would be the only move that I think is maybe head scratching. Maybe they think that there is something there that he just has to be healthy, play the full 82, or at least play 60 of those games. We'll see what happens, and then maybe I'm wrong. But a Ricky Rubio, a guy like maybe a Bradley Beal or a Zach LaVine, there are a lot of different ways you can go. There's a lot of room for improvement for this team. Willie Green is fantastic. I think he is a really solid head coach. Shared an emotional moment with Chris Paul after the game at the end of that one. Chris Paul, Devin Booker, Monty Williams, and Jose Alvarado and some other guys all had very, very high praise for Willie Green, and rightfully so, because he's a great guy, players coach, knows what he's doing down there in New Orleans. And again, he coached his butt off in this series. And, never once did it look like he ever thought that they weren't going to win this series. Like he was in it till the end, until the very, very end. And that's major props. So they have a fantastic coach in Willie Green. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for listening. I don't even think you deserve the right to do so because you're such a habitual pain in my side and you're going to be back on the show in all of like 2 weeks. But because I have to, and because it is my sworn duty as a podcaster to make sure that my guests plug themselves, please let everybody know where to find you and what's up next.
Hashtag thisJUSTin. Please put in hashtag. We don't want to go to Matt Skellerman's ESPN show, but hashtag thisJUSTin. We are not a traditional podcast, so you're not going to find us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or iTunes. You will indeed find us on YouTube every Monday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central on YouTube. That is hashtag thisJUSTin. We are on Instagram, on Facebook, and Twitter as well, so just go find us there. Monday's episode will probably deal with the draft. Sorry for carrying on through our heartaches as Green Bay Packers fan through that first round. But yeah, Monday night's episode will likely deal with the draft, so look out for us there.
Yeah, that was just thank you guys for watching. You guys can follow at the links below at GTP Marcus on all social media platforms, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. Available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and iHeartRadio. Please, if you haven't already, make sure you check out the other series recaps. We have been doing live shows because it just would get redundant if we talk about all the things we already talked about in the recap. So please check out the 2 episodes you did with Peyton Doyle, the Peyton Doyle show. We went over Brooklyn Nets and Boston Celtics. We went over that sweep. We also had him back on the show to talk about the Heat and the Hawks. So please check out those 2 episodes. Check out the episode with my guy Spencer Field in a full court talk. He came on to talk about the Warriors getting the job done against the Nuggets. Justin's MVP, terrible pick. Also check out the episode on the Mavericks and the Jazz. We had Blaine Spencer of the Final Whistle Sports Pod to come on and talk about that. Obviously, you're watching this show with Justin. Germ of Just About Sports is going to come back on to talk about his Sixers staving off the first ever 3-0 comeback blown lead as they got over the Raptors. And we may or may not have a special guest coming on to talk about the Grizzlies Timberwolves series. Fingers crossed for that one. There's some special things in the works there. We'll let you know. As for that, because it is draft time, you're listening to this on Saturday. So the draft will be over by the time you're finished with this episode. Well, Saturday night, rather, will be the last day of the draft. So the 32 episode NFL series is on the way. Justin will be here. Steez will be here. All these guys I mentioned before will be there. We'll have some other new faces to come in the fold as well as we break down all 32 teams off season, their draft, and then talk about their future in the upcoming 2022-2023 NFL season. So a lot of big things in the works. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel on all platforms so you don't miss any new content, and turn on notification bells. And last but certainly not least, clearly me begging for subscribers has worked so far because we're up from 86 to 89. So my birthday is in, at this point, 27 days. By the time you're listening to this, it'll be 26 days. If you could please make sure you subscribe on YouTube so we can get to 100 subscribers by the end of May. I would greatly appreciate it. May or may not be doing a giveaway for that. And if you're a subscriber, you'd be a part of that, so you don't want to miss that. So head over to YouTube and subscribe. Again, thank you guys for watching and listening. For Justin Marville.